The Motol Indonesian Round, first held in Sentul on the outskirts of capital city Jakarta in 1994. This our third season though, taking a 2-hour flight east to neighbouring Lombok, where just over 15 months ago work was completed on a brand new circuit to bring World SBK to the island's stunning coastline and the resort of Mandalika. Despite being purpose-built with wide runoff areas, the venue is officially a street circuit, with its access roads already in use by local traffic throughout the year. And since there are only 2 events held here annually, an already abrasive asphalt is particularly dirty off the racing line, making overtaking a challenge. That didn't stop Alvaro Bautista in November, above all down that 723-metre start-finish straight, before scrubbing 180 km/h from his top speed into turn 1. Turn 10 is the next opportunity to make a pass, an estimated 4.6 seconds on the brakes, making it the longest braking zone on the track, but it is a tight turn and it's easy to misjudge a move there. Finally, turns 15 and 16 approached at 250 km/h. The penultimate turn has a speed of just over 60 at the apex, the slowest of 17 corners along the venue's 4.3-km distance. In total, almost a third of the lap on the brakes. No surprises then, the Toprak Razgatlioglu is the record holder with his fastest effort posted in last year's Superpole race. Welcome back then to the beautiful island of Lombok as we build up to the final race action of the weekend at this 2023 Motol Indonesian Round. And what a day it has already been. So much drama in what was supposed to be a 10-lap race. Well, we lost 2 of them with a red flag on lap number 2 after a first lap incident and track conditions were unsafe to continue. So when we got back up and running, it was with an 8-lap distance and there was more drama in store for us. Championship leader Alvaro Bautista crashing out, Toprak Razgatlioglu and Andrea Locatelli making it a patter Yamaha 1-2. Steve English alongside me as we build up to the final race of the weekend. Can Razgatlioglu do it again? He's got one thing in his favour. Bautista must now start from 10th on the grid.
A 4th row of the grid start for Alvaro Bautista as he tries to bounce back from that crash this morning. He's going to make progress. We've seen that all the way through the races so far this week, where we've had Ducatis coming from the 2nd and 3rd row of the grid. They've been able to make places into turn 1, so certainly for Bautista, he's going to be 6th into the first corner. Then it's up to him to make the most of his bike and make his progress and come through the field. Toprak's going to be tough to beat, but we saw in yesterday's race that Alvaro Bautista, with the X tyre, the softest compound available front and rear, he was able to come through and dominate proceedings, so he's going to have a lot of confidence.
Well, a slightly different pecking order in terms of manufacturers in the Superpole race earlier on today. Toprak Razgatlioglu and Andrea Locatelli, Yamaha 1 and 2. We had KRT 3 and 4. Jonathan Ray bundling Alvaro Bautista out of the way, opened the door to Alex Lowe's to come through. Ray as well had a major moment. The most he could do was hold on to 4th position ahead of Axel Bassani, the top independent, the only independent in fact to score in that Superpole race. Xavi Vierke, another good recovery through the field from him. Likewise, Michael van der Mark and Scott Redding coming through onto row number 3. Michael Ruben Rinaldi will be disappointed how the 2 races have gone thus far, given that he was so strong through practice, looked good in Superpole, and he hasn't quite delivered thus far. So Rinaldi, another of those Ducati runners, Rinaldi and Bautista, rather out of position in the Superpole race, a little bit further back on the grid than we would have expected to see on the basis of form, and no doubt they will be pushing on to try and come through.
Yeah, 3 crashes for Rinaldi this weekend, 2 crashes for Bautista. They've been the 2 fastest riders for most of the weekend, but for Rinaldi in particular, after yesterday's crash in the opening corner, it really is a case of trying to just see what you can recover from this weekend, having only scored 3 points so far. So for Rinaldi, a lot of work to be done.
Yes, plenty of work to do for Michael Ruben Rinaldi as we build up to this race 2 here this afternoon, and we head into the pit box of Toprak Razgatlioglu. Well, last season I called him the master of Mandalika. That title was in doubt after race 1. Alvaro Bautista storming off into the distance, but no doubt about it earlier on today, an accomplished ride from him at the head of the field.
Yeah, it's really good stuff from Toprak, and he was able to keep a cool head for the 8-lap race. We saw in the initial stages that Bautista, before the red flag, had been right on his tail, and as it was with the issue or the incident between Bautista and Ray, and Bautista having the big crash. It ended up just opening the door for Toprak to have a pretty easy day all the way through the 8-lap Superpole race. 1-2 for Yamaha, and 1-2 on the grid now, so Toprak's got a chance to double up on Sunday.
Yes, how valuable will those 3 rows on the grid be for Razgatlioglu? We know that for long run pace it was Bautista who very much had the advantage over the rest of the field, and he was the one who was able to make that soft tyre work in his favour, so that's something that certainly is going to have to be considered over the course of the race distance here. Plenty of great images from the grid where there is a Mother Earth cultural performance taking place, and there's over 250 volunteers involved on the grid, all participating in that show and celebration of culture here in the Mandalika resort. It is the island of Lombok. It's the emerging tourist destination. We're seeing what happened in the Superpole race, and from a different angle here as well. Jonathan Ray forcing his way past Alvaro Bautista, the pair of them getting into trouble offline, but Alvaro Bautista getting into more trouble going down.
Yeah, and from there you can see that for Jonathan Ray, it comes from a long way back in the eyes of Ducati, but it's a move he made, and it's a move we see so often from Ray and Toprak at the front of the field. And Jonathan knew there was a chance to come through. He makes the move, and unfortunately for Bautista, you're pushed out wide onto the dirty part of the track, and then you get caught out from that.
As far as Bautista is concerned then, he is still your championship leader. He went through the opening races of this season unbeaten, and 4 wins in succession as far as Alvaro Bautista is concerned. That run coming to an end with that spill, and whenever you're going to have a non-score, it's going to be critical in terms of the point standings, but thankfully for Bautista, he already had a significant margin in hand, so his gap is reduced to just 28. The cause of the initial stoppage in the Superpole race earlier on today was a big spill around the first 2 turns, with Alex Lowe's caught up with Loris Baz and Danilo Petrucci as well. You can see the damage that was done to Lowe's first machine, and the number 22 bike looking very worse for wear indeed, but he managed to get back to the pits, and with the race being started afresh, a brand new start to the race, he was allowed to take his place, and away he went to secure a podium. What a remarkable morning it's been for Lowe's.
Yeah, it was action-packed for the Kawasaki squad, but both riders having crashes down at turn 2, and then as you can see this moment as well, this instant between Baz and Alex Lowe's during the Superpole race. Baz out of action now for this afternoon. It looks like a fracture to his ankle and maybe a lower leg injury as well, so really bad luck for Loris Baz, and once again, if it wasn't for bad luck, Loris would have no luck at all.
Yes, we're a man down, as we say, and it's going to be a 20-rider field over the course of this 21-lap race, and here is confirmation of it for Loris Baz with a suspected leg and ankle fracture for him, and that's the right leg that was collected there by Alex Lowe's. Obviously was looked at by race direction, but there was no action to be taken. It was just one of those things, Baz dangling the leg and Lowe's catching it.
Yeah, you can see from this, Lowe's gets the run into T10. He's committed to his line at the time that Baz sticks his leg out, and both riders already talk to each other. Obviously, Lowe's feels for Loris Baz in this situation. We saw it down in Park Ferme, and that was one of his first thoughts. But for Loris, it's obviously another bad injury for him, and just bad luck whenever, it's been going so well from this weekend. He qualified up inside the front 2 rows of the grid. He was running up in those leading positions in the Superpole race. Could easily have had a couple of really good results.
Yeah, troubling sounds there as well, as Loris Baz clearly in pain, had to be lifted off the machine, so we can only send our best wishes for a speedy recovery to Loris Baz. The only consolation for him is that we've got a big break now before the European season gets away in Assen. This is Jonathan Ray, and you'd say an embattled Jonathan Ray, wouldn't you? Because aside from that race 1 second place in wet conditions in Phillip Island, it has been a tough start to this campaign, tougher even than many were expecting for Kawasaki, and we knew that they were likely on the back foot, but clear pecking order having developed early on this season, and you'd suggest it's Ducati, Yamaha and Kawasaki in that order.
Well, this is where this race becomes critical, because the information we have up to this point is race 2 in Australia and race 1 yesterday, and it is a case of trying to see now whether or not we'll be able to see Kawasaki up at the front of the field. And see there for Domi Aguilar just getting a loss of a position against Petrucci in that race for that instant down into the last corner. We saw this plenty of times in the other classes and no penalty given. It's a late move to try and come through, but given what we saw in some of the other classes, bit of a surprise there for Dommy, and he'll be a little bit annoyed about that one.
Yes, but won't make too much of a difference in the final reckoning. 10th and 11th places they were battling for outside of the points paying positions and outside of the places that you need to improve your grid slot for race 2 this afternoon. So well, there might have been a foul, but there was no harm, certainly. Dominic Egerter and Danilo Petrucci will resume their rivalry, let's say, on row number 4. They'll be joined by this man, Alvaro Bautista. That's the result of the Superpole race. It's not just 12 points lost for Bautista, it's some hard work ahead of him with 9 positions to make up here.
Yeah, and that's where in the Superpole race becomes so important to always stay inside those top 9 spots. We talk about it a lot during that race. It's your grid position for race 2, and if you don't score points in that race, you're on the 4th row at best. Obviously for Alvaro Bautista, qualifying up there on the front row of the grid meant that he was always going to be able to take a good grid position, or as good a grid position as he could after that crash, but a lot of work to be done. So it's all about the run to turn 1, pick off as many easy prey as you can on the run down there on the opening lap.
Well, it is the first back-to-back podiums that Andrea Locatelli has had in his Superbike World Championship career. It's looking as though it's going to be his best weekend yet. What a start to it he's had with a 3rd position finish in race 1. He was 2nd in the Superpole race earlier on today, only behind his teammate Toprak Razgatlioglu. And Locatelli is another of the men making weight. It'd be great for him if he could complete a weekend always on the podium. It's going to be tough to do, though. There's some Ducatis behind him who are looking strong over a full race distance.
It's going to be tough, but Locke is riding really well, and again it gives you another good illustration of just how strong an all-round package the Yamaha is for 2 riders with totally different styles. Toprak all about being able to take advantage of his heavy braking style. Locatelli still a Moto2 Super Sport, Moto3 rider at heart, trying to carry the corner speed and adapting his style constantly to the Superbike, and yet they're both able to get very similar lap times, very similar performances out of the bike. And then further down the order, we were obviously able to see in Australia the performance of Yamaha as well, with Donny Aguilar and Gardner up there. So it is a case of, for that bike, just a good illustration of the big window that it can operate in.
Unfortunately, Eric Granado has been struggling with gastroenteritis all week long and was confirming symptoms as early as Thursday, but it can take a long time to recover from these, and it's a demanding schedule in World SBK. Plenty of riders suffering from stomach bugs over the course of this week, and unfortunately Granado is down and out as far as race 2 is concerned. That's why, as I said previously, we're down to 20 riders this afternoon, obviously with the loss of Loris Paz as well.
Yeah, so for riders at the back of the field, the likes of Tom Sykes, Baldassari, they're going to feel that you might have a bit of a chance to be able to come away with a point or 2 in this race. Obviously Remy Gardner at the very back of the grid, he's also feeling the same effects, so we'll see whether or not he's able to have the strength all the way through this 21 lap race. Obviously all these riders incredibly fit, but you're also always on a bit of a knife edge, particularly whenever you get an illness like that.
Yeah, I should say that Remy Gardner withdrew from yesterday's proceedings with gastroenteritis, so returns to the track today, but obviously on the back foot, having missed the Superpole session, which forces him to start from the back of the grid in the Superpole race, and indeed now in race 2, because it was never likely that he was going to make it up into the top 9 positions from there. He should be a point scorer, you fancy, even from row number 7, as long as he is able to keep up his fitness to the end of this race.
And it is a big question mark. All the riders do lose a lot of weight during the course, and it's just the dehydration, the fluid loss usually equates out to 2 kg for the riders in conditions like this. So that then places a big strain on you to make sure that you're still able to be as consistent and strong at the end of the race as you need to be.
Right, let's take a look through your starting grid then. Top 9 positions as they were at the end of the Superpole race earlier on today. And we start with Toprak Razgatlioglu, your pole sitter once again. He's never been anywhere other than pole position here in Mandalika. It is 3 Superpole poles out of 3 and 2 victories in the Superpole race out of 2. He was 2nd in race 1, and they may have to think, some of these teams and riders, about going a different way on tyres to try and keep up with Bautista this afternoon.
Yeah, we saw this morning Alvaro Bautista went out in the harder tyre. Yesterday he used the softer tyre. That could be a case of trying to save one of the soft tyres for this race. We'll see if everyone else makes a change as well.
Andrea Locatelli alongside him in P2. He's now had 2 second places to his name in the Superbike World Championship, previously and famously in Assen, and in the Superpole race, probably even more hard fought given the number of names who were competitive at the front of the field. High scoring week thus far as Yamaha are concerned. This their best venue last season, turning into their best again in 2023. Completing the front row of the grid will be Alex Lowes. Watch out for Lowes here. He finished 10th in race 1, coming from 9th on the grid. He now starts in 3rd position thanks to that brilliant resurgence in the Superpole race.
Yeah, great ride this morning from Lowes. We obviously saw the crash into turn 2 on the initial start that brought out the red flag, and then to bounce back from that, jumping onto your spare bike and having the confidence to push all the way through the race. That was impressive from him, and also from his teammate Jonathan Ray to do something similar.
Tiso watch goes once again to Toprak Razgatlioglu, and quite a collection of them he's now amassing. He loves the 10-lap sprint distance, and he wasn't too bad in the 8-lap sprint distance either, was he? Victory earlier on today, and hoping to add another here this afternoon. Great the sights and sounds of this cultural display, the opening ceremony, which is heading now towards its conclusion, and a demonstration of the local identity of the Sasak tribe, who are the traditional tribes of this island. On to the second row of the grid then, with Jonathan Ray as well as Axel Bassani and Xavi Vierke. Jonathan Ray, 9th position in race 1 after he rather barged Alex Lowes out of the way in the closing stages to get it. The fact that Kawasaki is struggling that far down the order really demonstrates the task facing them. Ray qualified 5th originally. He's up to 4th now thanks to his result in the Superpole race. It could have been more but for that comeback with Alvaro Bautista. 5th on the grid will be Axel Bassani. Strong starts to the weekend for him. 4th in race 1 and crucially 5th in the Superpole race. Same result as he had in the Superpole race last season, but it is occasionally a weakness for him. He's actually gained a row on the grid through the 10 laps this morning.
Yeah, and for Bassani, he's been up there 5th, 6th all the way through this weekend, so he's been nice and consistent, and definitely in the longer race he's going to feel that he's going to be confident of being able to try and come through with a podium.
Completing that second row of the grid will be Xavi Vierke, and he's the man to make stunning progress from 13th in the Superpole session, 13th earlier on in the Superpole race, climbs to P6, so 7th in race 1 and 6th position in the Superpole race means that he completes row number 2. Well, we're building up to the action here trackside, the Mandalika International Circuit. As I've said, it's been great to see the opening ceremony, the sights and sounds of this island, and a little bit of the cultural identity of the Sasak tribe, the ethnic group that marks this region, and over 250 dancers as well. It's now time for the national anthem. Well, it has been a brilliant opening ceremony ahead of race 2 of this Motul Indonesian round, and down on the grid, enjoying all of it, is Anthony Nelson.
I'm here with Michael van der Mark, and Mikey, you saw a couple of positions further ahead than yesterday when you charged through the field, but it does seem to be clouding over in conditions slightly different from yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday was pretty cloudy as well, but the wind is quite strong there. I think it's a different wind direction, but anyway, I think we're ready to race, and it's a long race, so we have to see what.
Feel confident?
Yeah, I feel confident. I have to stay calm. I have to be smart in the first couple of corners and stay calm and consistent. And you know, like I said, it's a long race.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Michael van der Mark will be coming back from row number 3. Of course, a quarter Indonesian, so quite appropriate that after the national anthem we get to hear from him.
Yeah, loves coming here to Indonesia. And for Van der Mark, he says he's been really careful all the way through this week. He hasn't been eating too much of the food that he really wants to eat when he comes down here. But he says from tonight until he flies back to Europe on Wednesday, he's going to go full local and give himself his fill of as much spicy food as he can get his hands on.
Oh, goodness me, and I've got the seat right next to the toilet. Row number 3, Michael Ruben Rinaldi, Michael van der Mark and Scott Redding. Rinaldi, who qualified P4 originally, had that first turn incident in race number 1. He's been chasing his tail since. Only 7th position in the Superpole race, so he'll be coming back from the 3rd row of the grid. He and Bautista both climbing, hoping to climb through. Yeah,
definitely. We saw Rinaldi there on the grid as well, just trying to keep himself as cool as possible, pouring the ice cold water over his head just to make sure he's able to keep the body temperature down. You can see the same for Van der Mark with a big fan there on the bike.
Yes, and big fan standing next to him as well. Michael van der Mark, always popular in this territory, and what a great weekend it's been for him. 2nd home round, and every inch as good as he is round Assen, isn't he, around this place. He's been on the podium before. 6th he was in race 1, and then 8th in the Superpole race earlier on today. So 2-point scoring finishes, and there were 3 men making progress in that Superpole race. Vierke was one of them, we've already seen. Van der Mark was the 2nd, and Scott Redding takes 9th. He benefits from Alvaro Bautista's incident. He's cut a dejected figure all weekend long, to be perfectly honest. He was furious after his retirement from race number 1, but he'll be pleased just to put a point on the board. But more importantly, at least he's in the mix, and he was right on the tail of Van der Mark in the Superpole race.
Yeah, has to try and go with his teammate as well. We saw at the end of yesterday's race just how strong that Van der Mark was. So good yardstick there for Redding in the early stages as well.
Well, we're not used to seeing this man that far back on the grid these days, perhaps when he was riding Honda machinery, but as far as Ducati is concerned, and that's all as a result of his spill from the Superpole race. He was in podium contention. He was battling on the tail of Razgatlioglu. Ray right with him as well. Jonathan Ray bundled his way through into 2nd place, and then Bautista going down, and that's what means as a result of his strong Superpole performance, he does at least get to line up in P10.
Yeah, and we saw in the aftermath of the crash, came back into the pit box nice and relaxed about it. These things happen. Try and move on to the next one.
The other man to have lost out in terms of grid position, Danilo Petrucci, and we'll catch up with him, I'm sure, in just a few moments. So he does like to be late to the grid, doesn't he? Dominic Egerter completing row number 4. Now, we've seen already that he had a bit of combat with Petrucci in the Superpole race, but they were outside of the top 9 anyway. Egerter keeps the P12 he earned in Superpole. He managed to fight his way through to 8th position in the closing stages of race 1 after capitalising on the combat between Ray and Lopes.
We saw a few shots there, dark clouds in the distance here in Lombok, and thankfully, as it stands right now, there's a lot of blue sky over the circuit, so hopefully we're able to get through the next hour unscathed, and we're able to get through the weekend pretty much dry all the way.
A makeshift board there for Garrett Gerloff on row number 5, just sending his best wishes, of course, to teammate Loris Baz, and everyone here echoes that. Never nice to see an injury, and that one looked particularly nasty, and he looked in some discomfort making his way back to the pits as well. 14th position on the grid here will be Philip Ertel. Now, he's had an understated weekend compared to his excellent Australian round. Qualified 15th this weekend. He's had 2 13th place finishes. Completing row number 5 will be Iker Lecuona. He was 16th in Superpole, 12th in race 1, and 16th in the Superpole race. But that really only tells part of the story. This is Petrucci finally making his way up. Star of race 1, through for 5th position. Tougher time in the Superpole race. He'll be coming back from P11. And just to complete your top 15, Iker Lecuona rounds out row number 5. He was 12th in race 1, as I said. He's had all sorts of incidents on Friday with a couple of crashes. He's up on the grid, battling on. He is carrying some knocks. We'll see how he gets on here. Anthony, a quick word from you on the grids.
Very quick word with Marcel Dunker. And Marcel, quick think about the team in the Superpole race, but yesterday the drop came after about 9-10 laps. What have you changed for today?
Yeah, exactly. We understood well our problem yesterday. You know, material and rider are pushed to its very limits in this blistering heat. We made some changes for this morning. In the thriller Superpole race, it seemed to work out, so hopefully the rider can manage the tire drop well over these 21 laps. And yeah, we'll see. Going to be exciting.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
Well, there it is. We knew it was going to be exciting, but it's nice to have confirmation of it on the grid. The whole weekend builds up to this kind of moment, doesn't it? That's why we have the opening ceremony. We have the national anthem before race 2. It is the climax of this round. And let's hope that the action on track delivers to the same extent. It's bound to, because we've got our championship leader starting on row number 4. Yeah,
we're going to have to keep an eye on the red Ducati from the 4th row of the grid of Álvaro Bautista when the race gets underway in about 5 minutes' time. But it is a case of right now, there's big question marks about how everyone's going to react. How are the tyres going to hold up? We saw in yesterday's race, Kawasaki really struggled, lost their pace in the closing stages of that race. How are they going to do now from 3rd and 4th on the grid?
Well, we might have to keep our eyes not just on that one red Ducati, but on all of the Ducatis. We know Bassani goes strong in the early laps. He's starting from P5. He's going to be trying to mix it for those podium places early on. Mid-phase of the race could be where he struggles a little bit more. That's what we saw in race 1. We know Michael Ruben Rinaldi will be pushing to try and get on terms. Great pace he had at the start of the weekend. It's eluded him in the actual races, and it's costing him dearly. And Danilo Petrucci, who came through nicely in race 1, will hope to do the same in race 2 this afternoon. It's been another solid weekend as far as Petrucci is concerned, with Barney Ducati's best results since 2019, when they had, of course, Michael Ruben Rinaldi on the bike. Making our way then up the starting order, we see our top 3, our podium trio from this morning's Superpole race. Toprak Razgatlioglu and Andrea Locatelli, a Yamaha 1-2 on the grids. The 3 Masters of Mandalika, the top trio from the 2022 Championship and the only men to have won at this venue, are back for one final time. It's one apiece between Bautista